Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So, every now and again, I do revisit old videos where I've had comments from people asking me to explain a particular thing, or in this particular case, potentially the scenario that I was looking at and analysing the first video might have not been what I was told it was. So, this goes back to the Mariah Carey performance from the AMAs, and in that video that I made, I pointed out that the performance was pitch corrected, and that's only something that can happen after a performance. So therefore, what I was looking at, because I was told that it was live and I was actually sent the video when the AMAs was happening, that I have judged it on that basis. Now, somebody's got in touch, and actually people in the comment section said, what if they pre-recorded it and then pitch corrected her voice after that? And of course that would be possible if it weren't actually a live performance. And obviously they are keeping it quiet if they are pre-recording it. So I'm going to conduct this analysis on the premise that it was a pre-recorded performance, therefore now bringing in the possibility for that pre-recorded performance to be pitch corrected before then being replayed live on TV. And, I mean, full disclosure, I have jumped into a rabbit hole with this performance and looked at 15 separate live performances from the last 19 years. So there's a lot to point out. So, ironically, as is always the case, after watching 15 videos of live performances, it's always the way that the first one I load up is the only one I need in order to prove what I said in that first video is actually true. But I'm going to take you through my process. So, watching all of these live performances, it is really quite obvious, especially when you're looking at these lines, and I've been doing this for years, but also just listening to it, it's really obvious when Mariah is singing live and when she's lip syncing, when it's pre-recorded. So what I want to do is have a listen to the AMA's performance, and we're going to be listening to the verse here because we just want to try and hear the difference. But you'll be able to see the difference on the screen because we're looking out for when she's over these lines, because this is pitch correction when this happens. So have a listen to this.
I would ever be without your love. Never imagined I'd be sitting here beside myself. Cause I didn't know you, cause I didn't know me, but I thought I knew everything. I never felt.
So, I mean, that is absolutely spot on in the verse. Now, let's go to 2013 and we'll have a little listen to this vocal.
I didn't know nothing, I was stupid, I was foolish, I was lying to myself, baby. I couldn't have fathomed I would ever be without your love. Never imagined I'd be...
And now straight away you can hear that mic response. That the mic is so sensitive, and you hear all the plosives on the mic. It's where you say a P and the air hits the microphone and you can hear that noise. But just look at where we are with the lines, and let's get 2018 here. This was another live vocal in the verse.
Held on tight, I never should have let you go. I didn't know nothing, I was stupid, I was foolish, I was lying to myself.
And you can start to see the difference that we regularly go between lines, but you can hear straight away that it's a totally live vocal. Let's go back to the AMAs again, skip it forward.
I never felt the feeling that I'm feeling now that I don't hear your voice.
And it's this kind of thing. So anyway, like I said in that first video, this is pitch corrected. So it means that it has been edited before it's been shown on TV. So what I want to do is move now to later on in the song, because what I started to notice was that at a particular point in the song, the mic response from loads of performances changed. And what I mean is the sound changed from when she was singing previously to now, this cutoff point where something else comes in. So the most obvious example I could find of this, where I think everybody will be able to hear the difference, is from the BET Awards 2005, where she is singing live in the verse, but then have a listen, see if you can spot it when we change.
Who's not gonna let me know when times get rough? Who's gonna talk to me on the phone till the sun comes up? Who's gonna take your place? There ain't nobody better. Oh, baby, baby, we belong together, baby.
So hopefully you could hear that. When we get into this higher section, it's totally changed. We've gone to a dry sound rather than the sound that we have with that little bit of reverb on there. Have a listen again.
Who's gonna take your place? There ain't nobody better.
Hopefully you can hear that reverb in the background. And this is live, totally live, this part.
Oh, baby, baby, we belong together, baby.
And momentarily there, you hear two voices. So what's happening is, I think that the mistake that they've made here is that the pre-recorded part, which is the end, when she goes up, and I've noticed this in every one of the 15 performances, the sound changes slightly and it goes to a different sound for this higher section. So, and this is going back to 2005, so 19 years ago, that this higher section isn't actually live, that it comes in on a backing track. So, the point that I was making is, if you listen carefully, you can hear Mariah's live vocal, and then what I assume is a crossfade that they're doing on the mixer. So it means that she's got her live mic and she's got the pre-recorded vocal on another channel, and somebody crossfades them on the mixer, so the sound guy, so that the live vocal goes down in volume while the backing track vocal goes up in volume, and you get a crossfade. It means that they cross over each other, so that you're not supposed to be able to tell the difference between the two. Obviously, the mistake here is that the channel that's being brought in doesn't have the reverb and the same settings as the other channel. It's now like she's standing in dead space, like she is nowhere, like she's in a studio, because that's where she would have been when she's recording this. It's absolutely dry, no effect on this whatsoever.
It's still so hard to believe. Come back, baby, please, 'cause we belong together. Oh, I'm gonna let.
I mean, listening to this, you would say, well, this doesn't sound like a live vocal at all.
Who's gonna talk to me till the sun comes up? Who's gonna take your place? There ain't no.
And now they've turned on, they've actually upped the reverb because they've realised that, oh, we've forgotten we haven't got the same settings on this channel.
Body better. Oh, baby, baby, we belong together.
And listen to that, where she says baby, baby.
Oh, baby, baby, we belong.
That sounds like a comp take where they've taken another vocal and just slotted it in there.
Nobody better. Oh, baby, baby, we belong.
See how that only those two words jump out as if it's something different. So I think because the signal is so dry, we're hearing that the tiny changes in volume between one take and the next. Now, this also falls in line with a theory that somebody mentioned in the comments section, and they said that Mariah Carey has the largest library of pre-recorded vocals of any artist. And obviously, I can't, validate that. It's just a random comment. But looking at this and hearing the fact that this baby's been placed in there, I was starting to think, is that the case? That they've made tiny changes all over the place over the last best part of 20 years in order to make every performance sound slightly different. And this is why I was looking at 15 performances, because I thought, well, if one part has been repeated twice, all we need is one match in order to show that it is a backing track vocal. I thought I'd put the video in the background just so you can see which performance it is from. Links are in the description below as always if you want to cross-reference what I'm playing here. But yeah, once they add in the reverb, obviously it sounds a bit better, but I'm just going to let this play on or skip to the end for the last note because we're going to need that for later. And you'll see how we're perfectly over that C5. And just for reference, Melodyne, a very popular pitch correction plugin that's used as an industry standard now, came in 2001 in its first iteration. And this is a performance in 2005. So you could say that that looks like it has been stuck to the C5. But we'll look at other performances and see what happens with the last note on those. I know that I'm getting a bit sidetracked, but just giving you this background information that we know since 2005. At that point in the song, it then changes to a backing track vocal. So, talking about the AMAs and whether it was a lip sync performance or not. Now, I have the recording from Rockin' Rio from 2024, and I've run that through the pitch monitoring software. And what I'm going to do is just let it play through so you guys can have a listen. We've got the AMAs on the right and the Rockin' Rio on the left.
Love you so, I should have held on tight, I never should have let you go.
So already you hear a slight difference. The AMAs, which is coming out of the left channel, had this slight variation with the vocal.
I didn't know nothing, I was stupid, I was foolish, I was lying to myself.
And a difference in the line there as well, from the left to the centre. The Rockin' Rio is in the centre. I'm just going to bring that down a little bit to make the left channel stand out a little bit more. AMAs on the left.
I couldn't have fathomed I would ever be without your love. Never imagined I'd be
Now you could say that sounded very similar, that little run up.
sitting here beside myself. Cause I didn't know you, cause I didn't know me, but I thought I knew everything. I never fell.
Okay, right, so I'm just going to move this back a little bit. We know that this vocal existed back when Rockin' Rio was happening, which was before the AMAs. So we also know that since 2005, there's been a switch point in the live performances when she's singing live in the verse to then the pre-recorded last part, which is, what, an octave higher. So anyway, let me now bring these lines over here. And, I mean, you can start to see straight away. Here we go. We've got a perfect match. So this is the same audio file as was used in Rockin' Rio. And it means that the AMAs was absolutely lip synced, because this, and I'm just going to take this out so that you can see, and it's always the case, look out for this, when the lines complete each other, there's no other explanation for lines going over the top of lines other than it being the same audio file. Now, what about the points at which they don't match up? It means that Mariah has a slight variation in that pre-recorded vocal, and you can hear tiny sections that are different, but it's still a backing track. So it is amazing to think of the amount of work they've put into this to change little phrases here and there on an audio file. You know, so basically there are loads of different audio files, but they've obviously only got so much of a vocal to work with that they have to repeat them, you know, now and again. So this is what we've got here. And just to show what I'm talking about, this here, we're looking at, by the way, this section where when I bring in the other vocal, look at the way that the lines now match up. And these are going over each other, by the way, to the 100th of a second. So when I get rid of them, you can see how, yeah. And it's amazing because when we look at it, and now we are fully the other the Rockin' Rio vocal, and then I bring that one out, and now we're just left with the AMAs, so we have this perfect replication here. So we'll just have a listen on to this Rockin' Rio performance, because, I mean, the audio is great, because this isn't fan shot footage, this is official audio from the show, so we can really dive into it.
Touching your shirts, cause I don't have the choice. Oh, what I wouldn't get to have you lying by my side right here.
I mean, that kind of thing where we have this breath that ends. So what's happening is, I think Mariah has done loads of takes of this particular song in the studio, and they've done loads of comp takes, which means they are choosing different bits of maybe 4 or 5 different takes. It might even be more than that. So this kind of thing where it sounds like she's going down and breathing, and then all of a sudden hits a note that is a lot higher without seemingly taking a breath or anything. Yeah, this, look at the way that the line's coming down, but then all of a sudden, in the same kind of split second, we are now up here at the G sharp 4. So we'll listen on a little bit further, because it'll give you an appreciation of the amount of work that's gone into this. Have a listen. Listen to the variation that we've got from, you know, left to the middle.
When you are on my mind, Bobby Womack's on the radio, say it to me.
Again, another variation there. And just to explain what we're listening to, these are 2 live performances that are lip synced to a backing tracked vocal with all of these little variations, so that's a separate audio file, and then we've got another separate audio file, but sometimes they go over the top of each other where they've used the same tiny bit of vocal for both. So it's really interesting, and I know that some people will say, oh, well, maybe they pitch corrected the Rockin' Rio performance, but I've cross-referenced it from crowd shot footage, so have a listen to this.
Come back, baby, please, 'cause
that is crowd shot footage, you can see it on the right hand side, being played at the same time as the official Rock in Rio audio. The reason that I mention about the Rock in Rio being the same audio as the crowd shot footage, you know, and the links are in the description below, so if you want to compare them yourself, and you can pan one left, pan one right, you'll hear it's exactly the same vocal from that exact same performance. The reason this is important is because with the crowd shot footage matching up with the official audio, we know that it can't have been pitch corrected, because the audio that was being heard by the crowd and the person holding their phone up was already pitch corrected. So it had to have been done before that live performance to then be lip synced to. And the vocal, that part that we had that overlapped, that was being lip synced to before the AMAs, so it's been recorded before the Rock in Rio performance, so therefore when they match up with the AMAs, we can say that the AMAs was lip synced. So at least that establishes the fact that the verse part, which, you know what, back in 2005 used to be live, is now no longer live in Rockin' in Rio because it's been pitch corrected, so it had to be pre-recorded, and parts of that overlap with the verse at the AMAs. So it's using that little section of that particular audio file, and that is pitch corrected as well in the AMAs, the whole performance. Now you're going to have to decide for yourselves what's more likely, whether Mariah at the AMAs has now broken away from that and has decided to sing the verse live and then mime that tiny section and then sing everything around it live in the verse, or whether she's done the same as Rock in Rio and done a fully lip sync performance, because that whole performance was lip synced, and we know that because it's being recorded live, but it's pitch corrected the whole way through, which is a production technique that is post-processing. It's not live auto-tune that we're hearing. It is a backing track that has been pitch corrected. Another thing that took my attention was this little trill that we have, or almost from Mariah, when we get into the higher octave. Have a listen. That little wobble in her voice. Now this is something that isn't on the original recording, but it is so unique, and you're going to have to bear with me here, because if I now bring on a performance from 2006, The Adventures of Mimi, I think this was maybe in California. Let me just check if that's right or not. Yeah, it was in California, 2005. So let's have a listen to this very quickly. We get, and you might be able to see on screen, you can see that the lines are completing each other. I haven't even had to line them up. So we get exactly the same vocal from 2005 to the AMAs in 2024. So I'm just interrupting myself quickly just to point out something I'm noticing during the edit of this video, because you can actually see the pitch correction that has been applied in 2024 that hadn't been applied in 2005. So it's a very faint line from the AMAs, but you might be able to see it just there. And it's just because of this tiny thing that she does with her voice. Obviously she did this in the studio, and they're using it now and again for the backing tracks as well. They choose that particular audio file that has this part in it. Let me get rid of that one and bring on maybe 2018. And I mean here, if I move this across, let's have a little look. Okay, right, so here, where are we? We're at, yeah, so we've got another overlap there. I'm just trying to kind of see the information that we're looking at here. Oh, and here we go, this little notch. that's the part that actually stops off. Look, you can see it here. So if I take this back, this will be the same sound. And there it is, that tiny little waver in her voice. So, yeah, I mean, don't worry about it kind of going out of sync here, because as you can see, it kind of randomly scrolls with pitch, and it's something that you can't control with the pitch monitor app. It just kind of decides to scroll up sometimes and other times doesn't. But you can see, like even here, that we have this perfect overlap. So that was 2018. So we've got 2 performances that overlap so far. What does she do at 2005? Let's have a listen to this and see what's going on here. We belong together, baby. And there it is again. So this is now the BET Awards in 2005. So this vocal has been, here we go, and there you go, it's perfectly over the top. So this vocal has been in existence since 2005 at least, and it's been on multiple backing tracks. So yeah, and the reason that it sticks out is because it is such a unique thing to do, and it happens so quickly that when it's the same thing and it overlaps like this, and it's happening so quickly that, well, just overlapping, there's only one answer for that, and that is the same audio file. And just to finish with, I did mention earlier in the video to look out for this last note, the C5. And hopefully you can see this on screen, how this yellow line is directly over the C5. Now, when I say this yellow line, what I mean is the Rock in Rio performance, the BET Awards in 2005, The Adventures of Mimi live in California in 2006, the original song recorded in the studio, and the AMA's performance. So we've got 5 performances here, all over the top of each other. So now there is a variation. So this is obviously a backing track that has her absolutely over the line, and they use this a lot, obviously because it's as accurate as you can get. And yeah, this is the other thing that I think the recording, was it released in 2004? It might be. And this is great because it's almost like I'm becoming an expert in Mariah's backing tracks, because look here on the left hand side, we have a line that is slightly flat of what is the C5, even though it says C6 on the screen. So I'm going to bring in the 2013 performance, and this one we're looking at is 2018 on the left. I'm going to bring this in because, and I'm going to get rid of 2018, and you can see how they are the same. The pitch is in exactly the same spot. So this means that there's another final note on a backing track that is slightly flat. So here's a variation we have that matches up on, 2 performances here and then 5 performances here. So even with this last note, if you are analysing it, you might have one performance that's slightly flat and one that's bang over the line, and then you'll think, oh, well, they must have been live performances because they didn't match up. Whereas the reality is that all you've done is hear 2 backing tracks. So, I mean, it is absolutely mind-boggling to think the amount of work that has gone into this to pre-record all of these vocals and do so many different versions of the vocal to then lip sync along to. So yeah, just chopping and changing little parts to make every performance different. But I guess that's, if you want to make it seem like it's live, that's what you will have to do, and it has been done, so that every performance will have something slightly different. So then people say, oh, well, of course she's not lip syncing because this is different to all the other performances that she's done this year or whatever. I don't know how many backing track vocals she must have pre-recorded, but I've only seen 2 versions of this last note, which is on the line, or as you can see, just ever so slightly flat. So yeah, and sometimes at the end here, she goes into vibrato. A lot of performances, especially back in the day, you'll see her moving the mic away from her mouth slowly because there's a fade out at the end of the held note. So yeah, but again, that's just a comp take thing, that they're choosing the bit where she's either holding and then fading out, or going into vibrato. So she's got the note on the line, then goes into vibrato. They're allowing that to come through. Sometimes she might stop suddenly, so they've just got that little part at the end of that particular take where she ended it. And of course she knows exactly which version of the backing track she's going to be lip syncing along to, so she knows exactly when to cut it off or do the vibrato or to do the fade out, which is that movement that you'll see her do. So I mean, I'm probably going to get no sleep tonight because I'm just having another quick look through, and on the original release in 2005 this kind of thing gets my attention, where we've got the pitch just even out for a few hundredths of a second. And in this performance from the BET Awards in 2005, we've got exactly the same flattening out of that note. And, you know, if I kind of bring this over, yeah, that's it. It goes perfectly over the top. So we have... Oh, and look at the way that the line completes itself there from the BET Awards. So this part of the vocal is actually from the original recording. And let me see if we can... Hang on, I think I just... Okay, right, so this is from 2006, the California performance, The Adventures of Mimi. And, I mean, we've got exactly the same look to it. Yeah, it just evens out. So there you go. So that goes over the top. So this is the studio vocal from the original recording, the original release, and you can see the way that the line goes into that line again. And let me see, what have I got next here? 2018, let's get this one. And we've got an evening out just underneath the E5 again. I'm going to move this over the top. Oh, right, there's so many on top of each other now that we can't really see it very clearly when we move it, but I'll do my best. Oh, you might be able to see it. It's just going to disappear as soon as I get the lines lined up. There you go. It just disappears behind the other ones. So we have, what's that? 4 performances that all have this thing identically over the top. So it's the same audio file that was recorded in the studio. So this part has been used on 3 other live performances at least. I'm just quickly working through these to see if it has been used on all of them. Now, what would be interesting if we get the AMAs up on screen, which is here, and take a look at this flattening out of the line that we get, and then again just going sharp. So now now this has been pitch corrected, so it might not match up, but I mean it looks exactly the same. Yes, I can't really do much about this because it's under so many, it's going to disappear. What I've just done is move the AMA's performance to the top layer, so that if we move that over here and move it down, it's another perfect match. So we've got the original recording, released I think in 2004, being used in 4 separate performances, and this is in 2005, 2006, 2018, and 2024, of course, this year. So, yeah, it's exactly the same. So, yeah. Anyway, really interesting. I know that this video's gone on for years, but it's great to be able to back up a previous video that I did when I said that it was a lip sync performance because of the pitch correction. It most certainly was a pitch corrected performance, regardless of the fact that it was recorded 2 days before, or maybe a day, I don't know, but we're taking that as given, even though I don't have, you know, definite proof that it was recorded before. We know whenever it was recorded that the vocal was already in existence, so it had to be lip synced. Yeah, because it was used in, you know, Rock in Rio. Anyway, thank you guys for, commenting and giving me your ideas and thinking about other explanations for why things match up or sound the same, because I'll always jump into it again and just dive into the data even more, because what's happened on the channel is it's only ever proven the first video more correct. So yeah, because it's objective data, the more you jump into it, the more, if one thing is what it is, it'll keep proving that that is the case but over and over and over again. And certainly in this case, we have got that. Yes, keep your suggestions and requests coming in the comment section below for future videos. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comment section as well. And I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!